My name is Madison Riley. I'm 34 years old and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I run a company that bears my name on paper, but not in neon. No flashy logo, no corporate glass tower. Just a consultancy I built brick by brick from the bones of nothing fueled by more caffeine than confidence and too many weekends spent under flickering lights. Riley Strategies started as a single spreadsheet. That was 7 years ago. Today, it handles data integration for regional banks and medical systems across the Southeast. It's not the kind of business you hear about on the news. We aren't disruptive. We're reliable, quiet, like me. This morning, I wake early, not because I slept well, but because I didn't. The light outside is soft, the kind that comes just before the fog burns off. I set a kettle on the stove and sit down at my kitchen table, the one I refinished myself. In front of me is the folder. Inside it are 3 documents I've read a dozen times in the past 2 weeks, and a notebook I've barely touched since this all began. The notebook is leather-bound, heavy-lined with my handwriting in fine blue ink. I started it years ago, back when the company was just me and a client in Charlotte who only paid on the 5th of each month. In the margins of every page, I wrote dates, updates, milestones, code names for development phases. There's a rhythm to my process, always has been. I don't keep these notes for nostalgia. I keep them because memory can be manipulated, but records don't lie. Lauren used to tease me about this book. She'd call it my little Bible mock praying every time I took it out in meetings. I laughed along back then. I told myself it was harmless. That's what you do when you don't want to believe someone could ever twist something sacred. But now I'm grateful for every page I filled, because these pages, my pages, are the only thing standing between the company I built and the story she tried to sell. She thought I wouldn't notice. That's the part I keep circling back to. Not the forgery itself, not the phone calls she made, but the quiet confidence with which she assumed I'd stay asleep in every sense of the word. The betrayal didn't come with fireworks. It came in silence while I was recovering from surgery, half sedated in a hospital bed, my body weak, my mind dulled. That's when she acted. She filed forms, she rerouted emails. She signed my name with a little more flourish than I ever used. And I might never have known, except one junior partner at a partner firm, someone I've never even met in person, had the decency to send a courtesy message. Just confirming your approval on this, it said. Attached was a draft sale agreement. My name was there, typed neatly above a blank signature line. It felt like a slap. I stared at the screen, blinking slowly, wondering if I'd hit my head. But then I read it again. The share dilution, the reassignment of ownership, the clause giving Lauren managing control for a transitional period. It was too detailed to be a mistake, too specific to be temporary. I didn't react right away. I didn't yell or call or text. I just sat there in my apartment with the shades still drawn and the scent of hospital-grade soap clinging to my skin. I opened the notebook. I flipped to the dates. I checked what I'd signed, what I hadn't. I turned my laptop on and started printing. That was the first moment I realized something. Silence isn't just a wound, it's also a weapon. And this time, it belonged to me. Outside, a dog barks. The city is waking up. My phone buzzes, but I don't check it. I don't need another reminder about today's meeting. My lawyer will be on time. So will I. And so likely will Lauren. She's never late when it matters, at least not when it matters to her. I take a sip of tea. It's gone lukewarm already. I don't bother to reheat it. Instead, I reach for the ledger, the notebook, and run my fingers across the inked dates like Braille. March 17th, initial patent filing. June 2nd, first B2B platform test. August 11th, staffing expansion. Every one of those decisions carries my name, my handwriting, my risk. Lauren joined the company 2 years after it launched. She was in between jobs, her last one folded under a cloud of vague complaints and managerial turnover. I didn't pry. I never have. When she asked to help with project coordination, I said yes. When she asked for equity, I said not yet. She said she understood. She smiled, said she wanted to prove herself. I believed her. Because she's my sister, and because I wanted it to be true. I didn't think she'd take my silence as permission to take everything. But she did. and now the damage is documented page by page, email by email. Not just the attempted transfer, but the coordination behind it. The lawyer she reached out to without my knowledge. The investor call she scheduled under a shared calendar invite. The board seats she tried to nominate herself into. It's all here. I'm not angry anymore. That's the strange part. The fury burned through me in the first 48 hours like a fever, but it left something else in its place, something colder, not bitter, just steady. A kind of awareness I wish I didn't have to learn this way. You never expect betrayal to wear a familiar face, but when it does, you don't forget the shape of it. Outside, the fog lifts a little. I can see the ridgeline from here, faint but solid. The sky is pale gray. My coffee table is covered in documents, copies, receipts, signatures. Nothing dramatic, just facts, just proof. I close the notebook and place it gently inside my bag. I press the leather shut until it clicks. No, I'm not going into that room to fight. I'm going in to confirm what I already know. She called me paranoid. Today I let the paperwork speak for me. When we were kids, Lauren always took up the space in the room before I even crossed the threshold. I used to think it was magic how she could turn a Sunday afternoon in rural Indiana into something that felt like a parade. She had this way of speaking where even her pauses felt like they were waiting for applause. Teachers called her a natural leader. Church ladies said she had such a bright spirit. I don't remember anyone ever calling me anything. I was the quiet one, the reader, the one who always finished projects early and didn't complain when no one noticed. If I came home with a straight-A report card, Mom would smile softly, then remind me not to gloat. But if Lauren brought home a B+ in algebra, we went out for milkshakes to celebrate how hard she pushed herself. It wasn't cruel exactly, just unspoken the way some families divide their love and attention without realizing they're doing it. When our parents passed Dad first, then Mom a year and a half later, I remember how Lauren folded into my arms at the graveside. She sobbed like someone unmoored. I stayed quiet, holding her tight, already thinking about how I'd handle the estate paperwork. She was 4 years older than me, but I'd been taking care of things since I was 17. I guess grief just made that dynamic more permanent. I was 26 when Riley Strategies became more than a side hustle. I had 3 contracts lined up enough revenue to hire my first part-time analyst. The apartment I rented above a florist shop downtown doubled as my office. At night, I'd sit cross-legged on the floor with client spreadsheets eating crackers from a paper towel. I was building something real and I could feel it under my hands. Lauren was between jobs at the time. Her last marketing gig had ended with mutual disagreement, but she didn't say much more. She called me one night I was still in the office and asked if I needed help with project stuff. She offered to handle client comms, said she missed being part of something meaningful. I hesitated, then I said yes. Because she was my sister. At first, it worked. She was energetic, persuasive, confident in meetings. She had a natural touch with clients, even the difficult ones. And for a while, that made me proud. I told myself we were finally becoming something closer, something balanced. But slowly, small things began to shift. It started with the reimbursements. Lauren submitted an expense report for a new jacket, almost $200, and labeled it client-ready attire. I paused, but when I brought it up gently, she laughed and said, "You want me showing up in clearance rack polyester? This is our image, Mads." I let it go. Then there were the emails where she began signing off as Lauren Riley partner. I hadn't made her a partner. There was no operating agreement, no equity transfer, no formal title change. I told her lightly, "You might want to use coordinator until we finalize things." She rolled her eyes and said, "It's just a word. Nobody cares." But I cared. Still, I said nothing. I kept thinking about Mom and how she always wanted us to stay close. About Dad, who once said, "No one will ever stand by you like your sibling." I wanted to believe that if I kept the peace long enough, things would settle. They didn't. There was a dinner at the Crossing, one of those sleek places downtown with dim lighting and servers who knew the wine list better than the menu. A potential investor from Raleigh was in town, someone I'd been courting for nearly 6 months. It was just the 3 of us. I wore my navy blazer, the one I always wore to pitch. Lauren arrived 10 minutes late in a designer dress I hadn't seen before, all smiles and red lipstick. The conversation started well. We discussed market expansion, back-end architecture, growth projections. I walked through the analytics, the dev pipeline, the quarterly client growth. The investor was nodding, asking thoughtful questions. Then Lauren leaned in and said, "What sets us apart is our origin. Madison and I built this thing together from day one. Same brain, two halves." The investor looked between us. "So you co-founded?" I opened my mouth, but Lauren smiled wide and said, "In every way but the paperwork." She laughed like it was a joke, but it wasn't. That moment stayed with me. The way she said it, not uncertain, not tentative, like it was fact, like she'd earned it. Back at the apartment that night, I found myself pulling out the antique compass Dad gave me the year before he passed. It was old, tarnished, and slightly bent on one side, but it still worked. He said, "Keep it on your desk. When things get fuzzy, remember what direction is yours." I held it in my palm for a long time. Then I put it back in the drawer and told myself it wasn't worth starting a fight. But I started watching more closely. Lauren began pushing for control in subtle ways. She asked for hiring authority. She wanted to lead client onboarding without checking in. She started calling herself head of growth in Zoom meetings. I didn't stop her. I didn't want to embarrass her. And maybe deep down, I still wanted to believe she saw me as her anchor, not her obstacle. I now realize that I mistook that silence for loyalty, and grief, especially the kind that never gets spoken aloud, can disguise itself as agreement. I'd lost both parents and didn't want to lose the only family I had left. So I bent, and then bent further, until I forgot where my spine was supposed to be. The thing about sibling dynamics is that they calcify. You fall into roles early, one shines, one supports, and if you're not careful, you carry those roles right into adulthood, even when you're the one writing the checks, even when it's your name on the founding documents. Lauren saw my caution as weakness, my silence as consent, and I let her. I think that's the part that hurts more than anything, not just that she took advantage, but that I gave her the space to believe she could. I hold the compass again sometimes now that everything's changed. It still points north, still works. And finally, so do I. Looking back, I don't think I ever really stopped being the quiet one, but I've learned there's a difference between quiet and passive. And some roles are meant to be broken, especially the ones you never chose. The email came at 7:48 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. I was sitting at the kitchen table, tea steeping beside my laptop, still moving slower than usual. Recovery wasn't linear. The surgery had left me tired in a way that sleep didn't fix, but I was back on my feet, back to scanning inboxes, reading memos, catching up on the 2 weeks I'd lost to a hospital bed. The subject line read, "Follow-up consent confirmation, Riley shareholder doc." I clicked it thinking it was routine, a legal form perhaps needing an updated signature. It was from someone I didn't recognize, a junior associate from a firm we sometimes partnered with. The tone was friendly. "Just making sure this language reflects your intent. Please confirm your original signature and terms before close of business Thursday." Attached was a PDF. I opened it. At first, nothing seemed off. Legal boilerplate, lines of dry clauses about ownership transfer, voting rights, compensation structures. I scanned with half my focus until my eyes landed on the signature block. Madison Riley, written in a smooth, confident font. A little too confident. I stared at it, then leaned in. My signature curves in the M tightens, in the D flattens the Y. This version was sleeker, more polished. It didn't look forged by a stranger. It looked forged by someone who knew me well enough to mimic it. I sat still, completely still, like my own breath might shake the paper out of existence. Then I started reading again, slowly this time, and what I saw cracked something in my chest. Clause 7. In the event of active medical leave, managing control shall be provisionally granted to the acting executive officer, Lauren Riley. Clause 10. Effective equity redistribution upon transition. 52% to Lauren Riley. 45% retained by Madison Riley, with 3% reserved for external advisory board. It kept going. Buried in polished legalese, the document laid out a shift in power. A redistribution of everything I had built behind my back while I was in a hospital gown, tubes taped to my skin. I didn't delete the email. I didn't even reply. Instead, I closed the laptop and sat with my hands flat on the table. I remembered how quiet the hospital room was the night after the surgery, just the beeping of machines. Lauren had texted me then saying, "Don't worry about work. I've got it under control." Now I understood what control meant to her. The flashback keeps returning sharper each time. The soft knock on my apartment door when Lauren brought over soup. The way she tilted her head and said, "I've looped in some backup counsel to help while you recover. You can review it all when you're stronger." I'd smiled, exhausted, grateful. I'd said thank you. I didn't know she had already written the ending. I opened the PDF again, this time printing it. The pages feel thin in my hand, too light for what they hold. I pull out a red pen and begin marking the margins, notations, questions, dates that don't add up. My handwriting looks different than hers. That's the irony. She tried to copy me, but the pen tells the truth. Always has. The rest of that day passes in quiet, methodical steps. I search the company file logs, checking edit histories, user IDs, access timestamps. It doesn't take long. Lauren used my login credentials. The digital trail is messy, but it's there. She copied files to an external drive 3 days into my hospital stay. I scroll through Slack messages, draft folders, calendar invites. There's a scheduled call with an investment firm I've never spoken to. Lauren had titled it Strategic Reorganization Plan, Riley Transition. I forward the calendar to my personal Gmail. Save everything twice. One version to the cloud, one to an external drive that hasn't left my desk since I launched this company. At 4:06 p.m., I text Jeremy, my attorney. "Need to meet. Urgent. Company ownership issue. Tomorrow." He replies instantly, 10 a.m., bring everything. That night, I sit on the couch with the printed packet in my lap. The TV is off. The lights are low. Outside, Asheville is quiet. The kind of quiet that comes just before fall turns bitter. My body still aches from surgery. But now I don't know what hurts more, the incision or the trust I didn't know I'd lost. I think of our childhood again. Me with the puzzles, her with the charm. I was always behind her not because I was slow, but because I waited for her to lead. Now I realize she wasn't leading. She was measuring my pace and looking for the first moment I fell behind. I hold the printout up to the light and stare at the signature again. She must have practiced it, maybe even rehearsed it in her head. I wonder if she hesitated, if there was even a flicker of guilt, or did she think I'd be flattered to be worth stealing from? I go to the bookshelf and pull down my notebook, the ledger I've used to track every decision, every deal, every signed contract since the beginning. I flip to a page from last quarter and compare my signature. The difference is small, but I can see it, and I know a handwriting analyst will too. I take a photo of both, date stamped, saved to a locked folder. Then I slide the printed PDF into a new file. I label it in black ink shareholder consent, M. Riley, disputed. It's a cold title, but it's clean. Clean matters now. I don't cry. There's no outburst, just a deep inhale, a slow exhale. This isn't about revenge. It's about record keeping, about protecting the company I've built from something even more dangerous than competition betrayal from within. I walk to the kitchen and pour a glass of water. The faucet hisses, the glass clinks against the counter. Ordinary sounds. But everything feels different now. Everything has edges. Tomorrow I'll begin the next part, the hard part, the legal part. But tonight I let myself look at that fake signature one more time. Not because I'm hurt, though I am, but because I need to remember it. Need to remember how close it was to real and how far off it felt. This company may bear my name, but that signature isn't mine. And I'll never let someone else speak it for me again. I ask her to come into my office just after lunch. The sun filters in at an angle that cuts the space into two colors bright over my desk shadow by the door. Lauren walks in, holding a coffee, wearing her usual heels, her phone still in her hand. She doesn't look nervous. "Everything okay?" she says, offering a quick smile as she closes the door behind her. I nod once, motion for her to sit. I keep my voice light. "Yeah, just wanted to catch up. It's been a whirlwind, I know. She laughs softly and leans back in the chair across from me. Tell me about it. You've been back for a week and already catching up faster than I can track. I look at her studying the calm in her face, the way she crosses her legs and adjusts the hem of her blazer like this is any other day. Like she didn't just spend 2 weeks rewriting the structure of a company she didn't build. I've been going through the files, I say, reaching for a folder beside me. Internal logs, authorization records, email access reports. Her smile dims but doesn't drop. Oh, yeah, I say. I slide a paper across the desk. It's a printout of the forged signature from the shareholder consent form. I don't speak for a moment, letting the silence take up space. This one caught my eye. Lauren glances at the page. She doesn't touch it. You're saying it's not your signature? I tilt my head. You know it's not. She exhales a small puff of air through her nose. Not laughter, not apology. Something in between. You were out, Mads, and things were slipping. We had deadlines. I did what needed to be done. I feel my heartbeat in my jaw. It pounds slowly like a quiet drum inside the bone. You didn't need to do anything, I say. We had protocol. You had access, yes, but not authority. You didn't tell me. You didn't even wait. You were sedated in a hospital bed. She snaps back, her voice low but sharp. And let's be honest, you never really trusted me to lead. You had me handling events and schedules, not strategy. I look at her. I don't blink. Because you weren't a partner. Her lips tighten just barely. She looks away for the first time out the window, then back to me. I gave my time, my energy, my name to this place. Everyone thought I was your partner already. I was tired of playing assistant while you sat in your castle. That word castle sits heavy in the air. I glance around the office. It's not grand. One bookshelf, a standing desk, the framed compass Dad left me on the shelf behind me. This room isn't a castle. It's a command center I built out of late nights and every ounce of risk I took alone. Why not ask me? I ask. My voice cracks just slightly on the last word. Why not just ask? Lauren doesn't flinch. She shrugs. Because I knew you'd say no. That's when the break happens. Not loud, not sharp, but internal like a crack down the middle of a pane of glass. I lean back slowly in my chair. I don't feel anger. I feel something deeper, a final detachment. I open the second folder. These are access logs, showing when you downloaded documents from my profile, using my credentials. I didn't think you'd check. You counted on it, I correct her. You were hoping I'd stay too tired, too foggy, that I wouldn't ask questions. She stands then, not in defense, not to flee, but with a kind of weary authority like, this confrontation is a meeting she's already rescheduled in her head. Look, I know how this sounds, but I didn't want to steal it. I wanted to share it. You just wanted to rewrite the terms of that share, I say. She picks up her coffee again, avoids my eyes. You weren't going to let me in, so I did what I had to do. That's the moment, the sentence that takes the air out of the room. I stare at her. I want her to realize what she's done. Not legally, not financially, but personally. That she rehearsed my absence, that she drafted it in Word and signed it in ink. You had every chance to build something with me, I say quietly now, but you wanted to build it on top of me. Lauren's face stays neutral. She opens her mouth, then stops. And just like that, it's done. The explanation, the deflection, the reveal. I nod once. That's all I needed. She doesn't ask what comes next. She just walks to the door, pauses as if expecting me to say something else, maybe to take it back. But I don't. She leaves. The door clicks shut. And I sit there for another minute before standing up. I turn to the bookshelf and reach for the ceramic mug, white, with the words, "Built from the ground up," etched along the rim. A gift from my first mentor back when the company was nothing but 3 clients and a dream I didn't know how to price. I hold it for a second, then my fingers slip. The mug falls, cracks against the wood floor, and breaks in 3 clean pieces. No shards, no chaos, just quiet separation. I crouch, pick up each part, and drop them gently into the trash bin beside the desk. No tears, just silence. I walk back to my chair and sit down again. The light through the window has shifted. My reflection on the glass is barely visible now, almost see-through. I open a blank document on my screen and begin a new file. Action plan, internal safeguards. Because I know what comes next. Legal filings, separation notices, NDA reviews, none of it will bring her back, but all of it will protect what's mine. I had all the proof I needed. What I didn't have was a sister anymore. The office is quiet after hours. Most of the team has gone home, the lights dimmed to low, and the only sound is the gentle hum of the servers. I sit at my desk with 2 monitors glowing in front of me and a small legal pad to my right. It's strange how silence feels less peaceful when you know it was the cover for something else. This is not about emotion anymore. I've spent enough time grieving what Lauren did. Now I need facts, timestamps, paperwork. I need the exact steps she took to replace me without ever saying the words out loud. The first thing I do is call someone I trust, Nathan, a cybersecurity contractor who once helped us rebuild our firewall after a minor phishing scare 2 years ago. He's efficient, discreet, and loyal in the way few people are. "Tell me what you're looking for," he says. Activity logs, internal document access, login patterns from my credentials while I was in the hospital. Anything that points to files opened, copied, or shared that shouldn't have been. He doesn't ask for more. By the next morning, he sends me the logs. The trail begins exactly 11 hours after my surgery. Lauren used my saved credentials, likely autofilled from my browser profile, to access internal directories flagged private. She downloaded 4 folders. One labeled Governance 2022, another labeled Equity Models, Expansion. She moved them to an external drive. That alone is bad enough, but what follows unravels the rest of the story. I search through email history. Most of it is clean, she's careful. She knew how to work around flags, how to forward from a personal account. But there's one thread she missed, a reply that includes me copied unintentionally. The subject line reads Q3 Realignment Strategy. I open it. It's a string between Lauren and a mid-tier investment group we once pitched to but never partnered with. The firm is based in Charlotte. I haven't spoken to them in over a year. Lauren forwarded them our latest valuation deck. My deck. Then added a message. She still thinks I'm just helping. I'll take the reins by Q3. I'll make it look clean. She won't fight back if I position it as transitional. That's the line. That's the sentence that stops the air in my lungs. I don't move. I don't react. I just stare at the screen. She wasn't improvising. She had a timeline. She had a plan. I hit print. The machine hums beside me as the document feeds out, warm, uncreased, too clean for what it holds. I take a red pen and circle the line. Not because I need to, because I need to see it bleed. She still thinks I'm just helping. I wonder how many times she looked at me, smiled, and thought that. How many meetings we sat in where she nodded while imagining the day I'd hand over control, not knowing it was never going to be a handoff. It was going to be a theft. I pull out a new file folder and write a label on the tab Legal. I slide the printed email inside. Then I keep going. I collect screenshots of login logs, drafts of edited files showing user credentials attached to my name but time-stamped during hospital hours. A list of forwarded documents. Calendar invites Lauren created titled vaguely but pointing to scheduled investor calls. All of it is cross-checked, downloaded, cataloged. I create a spreadsheet to log each piece of evidence, including the folder path and date of creation. I add a column labeled Owner Change Requests, where I track edits she attempted to make in the administrative system. One of them is dated 4 days after my emergency admission and attempted reassignment of administrator privileges from me to her. She tried to become me before I could even sit up on my own. That realization doesn't break me. Not anymore. It clarifies. Trust, I've learned, is not a static thing. It doesn't sit safely in the background waiting to be honored. It must be protected, audited, reinforced, especially when the person you're trusting is close enough to know your weak points. I spend hours piecing together the case. Not for a courtroom, not yet. Just for clarity. Just so I can look at the whole thing and say, this is what happened. This is what I missed. This is what I'll never miss again. By midnight, the file is an inch thick. I staple the audit trail summary to the front. It reads like a forensic report. Because it is. I sit back in my chair and let my eyes rest. I'm tired, but not numb. I feel everything, every line, every hour I spent letting her closer. Every time I made room in my company thinking I was making room in my family. I place the folder in the lockbox at the base of my filing cabinet and turn the key. I know what comes next. Legal strategy separation notices a process that will be clinical and cold. I'm not rushing it, but I'm not avoiding it either. The next morning, I wake up early, drive to the office, and scan the printed email again. I highlight it once more, just that sentence. Not for proof. For memory. She still thinks I'm just helping. I fold the paper once and place it into a separate folder I'll hand to my attorney. She called me paranoid. Now I had the proof she hoped I'd never find. The folder feels heavier than it should, not just in weight and meaning. I press it flat against my palm as I step into Jeremy's office. The smell of polished wood and ink lingers in the air. No music, just the faint ticking of a wall clock. He looks up from his screen, stands to greet me. I'm ready, I say, setting the file on his desk. He doesn't open it immediately. He studies my face first, as if checking whether this is still about business or something else. Then he pulls the folder closer, flips it open, and begins to read. I sit across from him, hands folded, waiting for the question I know will come. 10 minutes pass before he looks up. You understand what filing this will mean? Yes. It's not a ceasefire, it's a wall. I nod. That's what I need. He holds my gaze a moment longer, then nods back. Let's begin. The next 72 hours blur into movement. Legal filings, corporate board notifications, digital document notarizations. HR processes move into motion like a well-oiled machine. A formal fraud complaint is filed with the state business authority. Internal memos are drafted. Employment status terminated. Locks reprogrammed. I review the draft of the client announcement twice before signing off. Due to a recent internal conflict of interest, Riley Strategies has implemented leadership changes effective immediately. Lauren Riley is no longer affiliated with the company. For inquiries, please contact our client success team directly. No adjectives, no drama, just facts. Jeremy handles most of the direct communication with opposing counsel. Lauren's attorney sends a reply full of veiled language suggesting misunderstanding exaggerated claims. We don't respond emotionally. Just with documentation, screenshots, logs, recorded timestamps. On Thursday morning, a courier delivers the formal letter to Lauren's residence. She signs for it. That same afternoon, our facilities manager changes the access code on the main office door. Lauren's badge is deactivated. Her company email is locked out, archived for legal record keeping. IT confirms she tried to access the internal server once more 5 minutes after the email account went dark. That's the last digital footprint. There is no call, no message, no apology. The HR team handles her severance letter with procedural care. 1 week of unused PTO. Final paycheck. A line stating termination due to breach of internal governance protocols. It's technical, but it's enough. The website is updated, her name removed, her photo taken down from the team page. In the admin panel, I delete her user profile manually. I hover for a second before clicking. Then I press delete. A quiet notice appears on one of the consulting industry forums later that week, leadership change at Riley Strategies. Someone posts the update in a Slack thread. A few quiet messages trickle in. Some express polite surprise. Others say nothing at all. In our world, no one asks direct questions unless it affects billable hours. But the whispers will circulate. They always do. I don't read the speculation. I don't owe it anything. What matters is what's done. By Friday evening, Jeremy and I sit across from each other again, this time in a much quieter room. He slides the final signed documents across the table. All finalized, he says. She's officially out. Injunction approved. She can't access systems data or internal IP. And she can't represent herself as an affiliate of Riley Strategies in any professional capacity. I nod. He studies me again. Do you want to take a beat before we notify the full roster? I don't hesitate. No, send it. He leans back slightly, tapping his pen against the folder. I'll be honest, some people don't go through with this, even with the paperwork in hand. Why? Because it hurts. Because they still want it not to be true. I breathe in slowly. That was me 2 weeks ago. He tilts his head, waits. I thought this was going to be a pause. Something repairable. But that email, that timeline, that wasn't an accident. It was choreography. She wasn't confused. She was rehearsed. He nods, closes the file. You sure you want to go this far? I meet his eyes. This far is where I should have started. He doesn't speak again, just reaches for the envelope, seals it, and stamps the final corner. The papers are done. The signatures are inked. Her name is no longer attached to mine. Back at the office, I sit in my chair and stare at the now blank corner where her title used to appear on our team directory. I don't feel triumphant. I don't feel vindicated. I feel still. I open my drawer and pull out the white legal folder. On the top corner, I've written one thing in my handwriting final copy, Jr. I initial the edge and place it back inside. No gold notary stamp, no flourish. Just closure. I turn to my computer and draft a personal message to the core team. Hey all. As many of you know, we've made some structural changes this week. I want to thank you for staying focused and professional as we move forward. I'm here if anyone has questions. Otherwise, the road ahead is exactly where we planned it to be. I hit send. I sit quietly in my office for another 20 minutes. The sun is lowering outside the window, casting long streaks across the floor. The office is quiet. My name is still on the door. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't show my anger. I didn't retaliate. I just made it official. I didn't burn anything down. I just took my name back. The wind-up here is different, softer. It curls around the trees instead of slicing through them, and it carries pine and quiet with it. From my new porch, I can see the layered ridgelines stretching beyond the Blue Ridge foothills, hazy in the late afternoon light. The view isn't dramatic, but it's steady like the life I've been building since the storm passed. My cabin sits on 3 acres of wooded land about 40 minutes outside Asheville. It's small, just 2 bedrooms, one lined with books, the other with clean sheets and a desk that faces the window. The kitchen is narrow, the floorboards creak in the hallway, and the water takes a moment to heat, but it feels like mine in a way nothing else has for years. Inside, I keep things simple. 1 French press, 1 coat rack, 1 long shelf for things I don't need to explain to anyone else anymore. My office now lives in the back room, not the one with whiteboards and task trackers and monitors. The real office where I sit each morning with a notebook and write things I never intend to publish. I journal now, not to process what happened, but to practice what it means to live after something hard without letting it follow you like a shadow. It's been 6 months since I removed Lauren from the company. The structure is leaner now. Kendra, my longest-standing operations lead, is officially our new Chief Operating Officer. She runs internal workflows better than I ever did. I trust her with the infrastructure so I can focus on vision. That shift alone bought me back 30 hours a month. 30 hours I no longer spend chasing fires or second-guessing intentions. Clients didn't blink. A few reached out privately to say they respected the professionalism in how the transition was handled. Most just kept sending contracts and schedules and requests for data strategy decks. The work never slowed. Neither did the healing. At first, I thought it would come all at once, a rush of relief. But instead, it arrived in pieces. The first time, I slept 8 hours without waking. The first hike I took alone, no cell signal, just wind and gravel underfoot. The way my body began to breathe differently uncoiled when I realized no one was watching me for weakness anymore. I moved out of the apartment 2 months after the separation, packed everything myself. Lauren's name had never been on the lease, but her presence had been there in every file folder, every hurried dinner after back-to-back meetings. I gave away half the furniture. The rest I stacked in the back of a rented truck and drove up here without telling anyone. The cabin needed work, refinishing, repainting, patching, but I liked that. There was something sacred about scrubbing your own walls clean. Now I light a candle each morning before logging on. I keep my meetings to 4 hours a day. I stopped checking Slack after 6 p.m., and I take 1 weekend a month completely offline. No emails, no deliverables, no expectation of performance. Instead, I write. Mostly, I write to myself. Pages about leadership, about loss, about the lie that work is supposed to replace identity. But some days I write letters I don't send. They're not angry. They're not designed to fix anything. They're just unfinished conversations, things I needed to say without needing to be heard. Yesterday I wrote one to Lauren. It started with her name. No greeting, no dear. I wrote about the early days, how she made me believe we were building something side by side, even when her hands were on my shoulders more than on the foundation. I wrote about the meeting where she said, "You were never going to let me in," and how that line told me everything about how she saw me. Not as a partner, not even as a sister, but as a gatekeeper standing between her and a version of power she didn't want to earn. I didn't write to shame her. I didn't ask for anything. I just wrote the truth mine in full sentences without apology. At the bottom of the letter, I wrote one last line. "You could have built this with me, but you chose a shortcut through me." Then I folded the page, placed it into the box on my shelf, marked unsent, and closed the lid. That box sits between my father's compass and a framed photo of the company's first office, the one above the florist's shop, back when everything smelled like wax paper and potential. I've stopped waiting for apologies. I've stopped rehearsing final conversations in the mirror. Closure, I've learned, doesn't always come in words. Sometimes it comes in routines, in walking the perimeter of your own boundaries without fear, in drinking coffee slowly, in knowing you won't be interrupted by someone else's expectation of what you owe them. I don't know where Lauren is now. We haven't spoken since the letter was delivered. I don't check her LinkedIn. I don't read the industry boards anymore. Whatever she's doing without my name behind her, and that's enough. This morning, I opened the windows before the sun finished rising. The sky was soft gray, low with fog. I brewed coffee and listened to the birds warming up in the trees. My inbox was full, but I didn't touch it. I sat at my desk, opened a blank page, and wrote one word at the top. Peace. Then I set the pen down, placed the notebook on the shelf, and stood up. Some closures don't need a door slam. Just silence. The cafe inside the co-working space is quiet this morning. Warm wood, high ceilings, soft jazz playing low through overhead speakers. I sit at a small round table by the window, sipping coffee from a paper cup, watching the steam rise in slow ribbons. Across from me sits Riley. 28, fresh out of her Series A, raise high energy in a way I remember being once. She wears a simple blazer jeans and an expression that says she's balancing too many tabs in her head. She's smart, curious, still learning how to trust her gut before the noise. We've been meeting once a month for mentoring check-ins, short focused sessions, where she brings questions and I mostly ask more of them in return. Today, her question is different. She leans in a little, lowers her voice, even though no one's listening. "So, I've been thinking about hiring my cousin as COO. She's organized, went to school for HR, knows the family business model. Do you think that's a bad idea?" I don't answer right away. I glance at the condensation on my cup, then back at her. "I think family can be beautiful," I say softly, "and so can contracts. Build both with intention." She blinks a little surprised, then she nods slowly, understanding more than she did a moment ago. There's no need to say more. I don't tell her what happened to me. I don't give her the story. That's not why we're here. What I've learned doesn't belong in cautionary tales. It belongs in small, steady sentences that people carry with them later, when the decision is in front of them, when it actually matters. Riley smiles. "I'll think on that." She pulls a small box from her bag. "Before I forget, a thank you." Inside is a paperweight, clear acrylic, engraved in quiet silver text, steady builds, win. I run my thumb across the edge and feel the smoothness of something simple earned. "Thank you," I say. It'll go on the windowsill in my home office, not as a trophy, as a reminder. We finish our coffee and chat logistics, next quarter's goals. Staffing needs a pricing model she wants feedback on. Her voice rises again. She's back in builder mode, full of fire, and I let her go, gently encouraging her to lead with strategy, not speed. By the time we stand, the cafe has filled in. A few groups chat in hushed tones, laptops, open phones buzzing softly on tabletops. It's the kind of morning that belongs to people who are just starting to believe they can shape their lives on their own terms. Outside, the air is cool, crisp. sunlight glints off the passing cars on Main Street. I walk slowly toward the corner, no destination in mind, just giving the morning room to unfold. A few birds gather near a tree across the street. I stop for a second and watch them. Something about how they stay in rhythm, no sound, no command. Just movement in sync. I used to think success had to be loud, or at least recognized. But now I think it only needs to be steady, something no one can take credit for except you. Something that lives quietly in your calendar, your sleep, your breath. At home, the paperweight will sit next to the unsent letters. I haven't added to the box in weeks, not because there's nothing more to say, but because sometimes silence says enough. Lauren hasn't reached out, not by phone, email, or message. I don't expect her to. And if she ever does, I don't know what I'll say. Maybe nothing. That's the part no one tells you. The healing doesn't end with a confrontation or a final word. It settles in places that used to ache. In conversations you no longer rehearse. In mornings like this one where peace doesn't need to be earned or defended. The city hums around me, but I don't feel pulled by it. I cross the street, hands in my coat pockets, shoes clicking softly against the pavement. The truth about what happened between Lauren and me doesn't need repeating. It doesn't need rehashing. The people who needed to know already do. The people who don't never mattered to the outcome. I've built new things since then. Not just processes or structures, but stillness, boundaries, choices I stand by without apology. I've stopped letting fear choose for me, fear of confrontation, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being alone. I'm not alone. I mentor women who remind me of who I was before things broke. I drink my coffee slowly. I spend afternoons reading again. And I sleep not the shallow kind, but the deep, quiet sleep that comes when you no longer owe yourself an explanation for surviving. As I round the corner, I pass a man walking his dog. He nods. I nod back. The moment is small, but it belongs to me. I don't check my phone. I don't rush home. I just keep walking. Some truths don't echo. They just last. Madison's journey was not one of loud confrontation or dramatic revenge. It was the quiet reclaiming of her own name, her work, and her peace. Betrayed by the person she trusted most, she chose not to fight with anger, but to protect herself with clarity, proof, and purpose. In doing so, she reminded us that strength does not always announce itself. Sometimes it lives in restraint and boundaries held firm and in walking away without needing to explain. This is a story about self-worth, the courage to be underestimated, and the power of building something no one can take from you. If you've ever had to stand alone and protect what you built, this story is for you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment, share your own experience, and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. You are not alone in your silence, and silence, when chosen, can be powerful.